Okay, today we're going to work through the new client protocol here in Intake Queue. So first, we're going to pretend that our client's ready to schedule an appointment or an evaluation. So we log into Intake Queue, we click Lists and choose Clients, and that's how we get here. Then to add a new client, we'll click this blue button here, Add New Client. Then this window will pop up and we can add our client's information. First name, last name. We'll enter the client's email address, phone number, date of birth. And once we enter that in, we'll click Save. Now you'll see your new client here is popped up on the list. And if you click the client's name, it opens up their client profile. So from here, we can schedule an appointment. There are two ways to schedule an appointment. One is here from the client profile, and the other is from the calendar. So first I'll show you here on the client profile, this green box with the plus next to timeline. We'll click that and choose Book Appointment. Then this Add Appointment window comes up. The location is your home. And this address here, their home address, will be populated once they submit their intake form with their address on it. You can enter it by hand here, but it's also automatically filled once that information is in the system. Okay, so an important thing here with this service, if it is their very first appointment, we want to make sure that we choose the service called Initial Assessment. And this is because it triggers some other important tasks that have to do with the very first appointment. Okay, we'll select a date and time. We'll add a reminder. You can choose email, text message, phone call, or none, depending on the client's preferences. As a default, we choose text message. And on the very first appointment, we'll always send the form, physical therapy intake, in your home, in this case, because it's in person. If it were telehealth, then we would choose that corresponding form, physical therapy intake, telehealth. There's also a place here for us to create an invoice. We're not going to do that right now. And also, this box here should be checked. Send a confirmation email to the client. Okay, so this is how we create an appointment. They are going to be notified by email. This one is in person at their home address. We've chosen Initial Assessment here as the service because it's their very first one. Set the date and time, added a reminder, and we've chosen which form to be sent. So then we'll click Save. We save that appointment. We can see here the confirmation was sent to the client. And in your timeline, you can see two things. This purple one is the appointment. Appointments are purple. And the green one is the intake form that was sent. So when they log in and fill that form out, you'll be notified here through Intake Queue, and you'll also be able to see that here when you choose physical therapy intake in your home in this client's timeline. Now, the other way to schedule an appointment is from the calendar. So we'll come here to Bookings, and from the calendar, we will choose the day that we want to make the appointment for. And this same Add Appointment box comes up. So in this case, we need to add our client's name and choose them from the list. If they're in the system, they've popped up. The location is your home, and again, their home address will automatically pop up here once they submit their intake form. Remember, it's their first appointment. We want to choose initial assessment. Set the date and time, which we chose when we clicked on the calendar, but we can change the date and time here in this window as well. We have a text message reminder set up. And here, if we are setting an initial assessment, we'll want to send the form just like I showed you a second ago. So this would be physical therapy intake in your home. Now, since we already set their initial assessment and we're making another appointment, we're just going to choose in-home physical therapy and wellness. We don't need to have initial assessment selected, and we don't need to send them another form. We've already sent them their intake form, but we still want to have send confirmation email checked. We want them to be notified that they have an appointment. Okay, so same thing, we'll click save. You'll see both of those appointments we've created on the calendar. And when we go back to Jane Doe's client profile, we can see as well both of those appointments here on her timeline. So we have the initial assessment and then also the second visit in-home physical therapy and wellness. Okay, so that is how we create a new client and schedule them an appointment. Now you can see here in the client profile that there are tasks pending for this client. So when I click this, it will show you the tasks for this client, and you'll see that there are two here. One is to send the GFE and email the passcode to them. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And the other one is a double check that the plan of care has been completed and signed. So that is set for 21 days. And the send GFE and passcode is set for 1 day. So these two tasks were triggered because we booked the appointment of initial assessment. So that's why it's important to select that initial assessment on the first visit, because it triggers these two things to be done. So to create a GFE, which is a good faith estimate, we're required to send that whether or not they request it. And so a good faith estimate is a note. So we'll come back over here to our green plus and we'll select create new note, and we'll select good faith estimate. Click continue. Now, when we complete a good faith estimate, there are a few things to keep in mind that we'll need to have. Those things are a name, date of birth, email address, and a diagnosis so that we can set our ICD-10 codes. So those are the four necessary things in order to complete a GFE: name, birthday, email address, and diagnosis. So the first step is to select the date of the request. Usually it's the same day that the estimate's being provided, but sometimes it's not, so be sure to check that appropriately. Date of request, date estimate provided would be today, and their date scheduled also would be today. We scheduled their initial assessment for today. Okay, so this good faith estimate is being provided. We need to choose upon request or upon scheduling. Usually we choose upon scheduling because it's the standard procedure. People don't usually have to request a GFE. Then we choose if the requester is, or client, is uninsured or insured but wishes to self-pay. Then we make sure we have the correct name, date of birth, and email address. If they supplied us with their email address, then we can check yes, consent to email obtained. And if that is the case, does patient require estimate by mail? The answer would be no. Now, if the client for some reason doesn't have an email address, doesn't want to receive any correspondence or things through their email or something like that, then we would select no here in this case, and the patient would require an estimate by mail. So when we select yes here, we can see that this section pops up for us to enter their address, for us to mail that to them. So in this case, email consent obtained, yes. Estimate by mail, no. Now here is the section to enter in our diagnosis information and ICD-10 codes. So this information is generally obtained when speaking with the client when they're setting up their appointment. However, if you are not the one to book the appointment or speak with the client, or you simply don't know what their diagnosis is, a lot of times we can, this is saved, we can come to this part of the client profile, and the basic information will have additional information here. So if someone spoke with the client on the phone or other communication, a lot of times that information will be right here. So check here first. If there's nothing there, then you can come and you can open up the physical therapy intake form. Now, if this has been completed, then this question here, number 7, will usually answer the question for you. What is your concern brings you to seek out physical therapy? Now, if you've checked here and in the profile and you are still unsure of a diagnosis, reach out to the physical therapist for that information. Okay, so we will pretend here that their primary diagnosis is generalized weakness. And difficulty in walking. So I keep a list of common ICD-10 codes. I would encourage you to do the same, and that is shared in our G Drive. So our code for generalized weakness is M6281, and difficulty in walking, that code is R262. Now, this will be, again, different for every client. It's important to get that correct information and then enter the corresponding ICD-10 codes. We'll choose how the diagnosis was obtained, whether it was by examination, by the treating provider, or by the patient report, which is usually the case, patient report. And we choose services patient is seeking, occupational therapy or physical therapy. Okay, so once we have completed every section here, we will lock this note. Locking the note signifies that it's complete. You have done it. Now, if you are still waiting on a piece of information, perhaps you're not sure of the diagnosis, or you don't have a date of birth for the client yet, or something like that, then complete as much as you can, but leave the note unlocked so that you know to come back and finish it. Once you've locked it, then we can share it with the client. To do that, we click More and then Share. We want to share the document with client, and continue. Here we will choose email and secret passcode. Continue. Then their name and email will already be here. We'll set this to expire after 14 days, so it's good for 2 weeks. Then when we create a passcode, so I generally keep it as GFE, the year, and then the client's first and last initials. So this can be anything that you set it as, but as a standard procedure, I use GFE, the year, first and last initial. Then we click Send Document. So once we have done that, then we go to our email, our Gmail, and we send the client an email with their passcode.